All right, one more. Girls, I am back. I am here, and just hanging out. Gonna kind of tie up the Ryan Johnson stuff with some other things that I have noticed. I'll say noticed because it's true. Um, Last year and the year before, well, year no, was it all right? 2 years, 3 years ago, at this time of year, they were filming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Or was it four? I can't remember. 2 years ago, Kennedy got yelled at by Iger for daring to blame him for the failures of Lucasfilm. And then she and her husband went blithely off to London, to the islands off the coast of Spain, to Portugal, to Spain itself, to Paris and Provence. So, okay, hey, Lone, hey, Cross, how are you doing? So, anyway, and I don't get hey, Dave, I'm doing well. So, I'm like going, okay, what's going on here? Because it doesn't look like they've planned on any Euro excursions. And I'm wondering what's going on. Now we know that they've been filming Ahsoka season 2, and we know that the first half is going to be Peridia, Anakin, and everything going on, basically Mortis. Second part's going to be the galaxy far, far away with Leia and everybody. So, you know, is Kennedy there meddling? Is she meddling? I mean, these are the things you have to ask yourself because it's been really quiet now. Sparrow is relaxing right now, and he's like, everything's going fine. We have seen people leave Lucasfilm, and then of course, let's talk about the Ryan Johnson revelations. So Ryan Johnson, this last weekend, admitted to Rolling Stone that his trilogy is never going to happen. We found out today through Star Wars Theory. I'm going to give him props that Mark Fernandez, the guy who created Collider, was told by Rian Johnson that Rian had pitched his trilogy ideas before Kennedy then offered him episode 8. She said, and I'm going to paraphrase, that why don't you just do episode 8 instead of your trilogy? And they come back to the trilogy. Well, in order to market episode 8, they went out of their ways to say that he had a trilogy coming. Did they not? And they misled the blue pill fans, the Molly Damons and Amanda Wards and all the overly pierced blue-haired land whales, that they were going to have that Ryan Johnson, their hero, was getting his own trilogy. And had we known what was really going on, Johnson said there wasn't any spec scripts, there wasn't any anything like that. They were just kind of zinging things back and forth, and that was it. That's all it was. Yet, we were marching around terrified that this son of a bitch was going to get a sequel trilogy. Now, let me say, Mark Fernandez, who's friends with Star Wars Theory said, oh, well, Ryan's a really nice guy. It's like, nice guys don't attack the fans, posting pictures of fat middle-aged men in diapers, calling the fans who are pissed off about how Luke Skywalker was treated. Then we find out the actor that played Admiral Akbar was basically bullied and cried when he had to leave. They don't call man babies. You don't call fans man babies. You say, shit, maybe we shouldn't have done that. When Mark Hamill says, I think we're doing this wrong, and Ryan goes, it's not for the fans, it's for us. No, it's not. The only person who can get away with that is George Lucas. And in retrospect, when you start looking at the sequel trilogy or the prequels, you'll see the movies he wanted to make were good because the stories were good. And the sequels will never get the love. They will never get the love because they were a clown ass reboot of the OT and just basically destroyed everything George created. And the idea that Kathleen Kennedy is unapologetic when she knows damn well what she did pisses me off to no end. Okay? Unapologetic. And we get to find out that the entire fandom was misled that Rian Johnson never had a trilogy. And it, I'm like, had we known, had they never said anything, I think Star Wars would probably be in a better place, right? But Rian Johnson was the one that went out of his way to humiliate Mark Hamill. When Mark cried on the set, humiliate Carrie Fisher, and she was not healthy enough to say, fuck you. And trust me, had she been healthy enough, she'd have crushed him like a wrecking ball, right? Harrison Ford had been on the set. He'd have gone over Kathy's head, gone straight to Iger and said, get this little fucker out of here. This script sucks. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. And he would have said, this is what's going on. How could Rian Johnson, piece of shit, look at himself in the face, knowing he made Tim Rose cry? What kind of a little round-headed bully does that? Taking away the dignity from, oh yeah, I remember that. And Kathy had a heart attack and yelled at Mark, called up Mark and yelled at him. And I'm like going, guys, here's the deal. We have been misled the whole effing time. Rian Johnson never had a trilogy. Kennedy never had the balls enough to go the full way, to pretend he had a trilogy so he could get his trilogy, like she did with Leslie Headland. Right? All right. What else haven't we been told? What else has been just probably sitting in front of our faces that we haven't noticed yet? Well, he's doing rather well with the stupid murder mystery franchise. And it's like, just here's the deal. Do what you know. And if that's what he knows, then he needs to do what he knows. Murder mystery's fine. But stay away from big tentpole franchises, especially ones that are so established to the point where they are cultural cornerstones. All right? Okay? Stay away from them. These are not yours to fuck with. Everything preceding the Disney sale, including Clone Wars, is George's. And what Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams with his half-assed reboot shit, and he could have actually fixed The Last Jedi by completely erasing it. And instead, he tweaked it. It's like this, this half-assed shit that we've got going on from these people, from J.J. Abrams, and the out-and-out mean-spirited bully shit from Johnson. Well, that's what he's got. He was given $200 million to make Knives Out by Netflix. I'd say the little motherfucker's doing quite well, right? And I guarantee you, he made money even if The Last Jedi really didn't make money, because it has come out recently that they actually had to do reshoots and pickups, which costs money and eats into the budget, right? It made $1.3 billion, which is over $1 billion less than what Disney projected it to. Now, had they done it the right way, Rey being Rey Solo, all right, Mark having an explanation of why Luke is hiding, rather than, I suck, that's, this is what we got, all right? And reading this article, again, what haven't we been told? All right, let's go back in this last year. Hi, Ian, how you doing? And everybody in the chat, hi. We've got Matt Bellany in February saying from 3 or 4 different sources at Lucasfilm that Kennedy is on her way out within a few months to the end of the year. And I think probably considering that Disney's doing their third quarter financial report, quarterly report, on August 7th, that it's from August 1st to the end of the year. Okay, and when Bellany had to bite back at Deadline and its reporter Mike Fleming for that incoherent, half-demented rant Kennedy put out there about she said she was leaving. Matt Bellany, if you read the original, said, and I quote, I never said she was retiring. I said she was leaving Lucasfilm. Okay? And her saying, I'm not going anywhere. She thinks we're talking about her quitting movies. We're not. You can make all the shitty movies you have ever wanted to make. Bitch, you have the money. You can go and sign all kinds of deals to be a producer on maybe you and Rian Johnson can make up your own fucking movie studio. And you can run that into the ground too. And, but we've got this going on. She does this interview. Bellany bites back and says she's leaving. It's going to be months now, not at the end of the year, because then he was pissed, right? We've got THR putting out a list of people that could take over for her, and my support falls on Favreau and Filoni. And, they came out later with Filoni and Carrie Beck But you got to remember, we got 2 years ago. There was a list of from HR of people that needed to go, and Carrie Beck was on that list, and the reason why is because she was doing things that were inappropriate. Think trying to be the female version of Harvey Weinstein, and with the men that she worked with, which, I think of the movie Harrison Ford was in, called Presumed Innocent, and it's like, that's she's the girl in it. Excuse me, and I just go. So she's not leaving, and apparently Lin-Wen Brennan is going on to be the boss at ILM. That was something I had heard. Just keep her far away from story creation and the creatives who create this stuff. But it's worrisome to me that we haven't seen more of these people leaving. Now, we've got Rain Roberts, who was one of the people on the list. She went to Fox Searchlight. And the reason she was on the HR list to be terminated was she didn't get along with Dave or John. Okay. And so she got the heave-ho. Fine. Then this Max Taylor, I'm pretty sure that guy was part of the LGBTQ mafia there. But, Pablo hasn't gone anywhere yet, even though Sparrow has intimated that they're not re-upping his contract. Which I think is interesting. They don't just hire people for a salary. It's like, are the people who have salaries, are they like the assistants and stuff like that? And then the people who are like story group, etc., they get contracts. I don't understand how this works. But it's been intimated through Bird Person, and they said this, that a lot of the people that have caused trouble are not going to get their contracts renewed. Okay, now, so what's going on here? It's been also intimated that the reason why we haven't seen more people leave, as far as like the true troublemakers, it's because Kennedy is still there. And still, as long as she's there, they have a shield. Like when Pablo got into trouble for attacking the fans, for being emotional when Luke shows up to rescue Grogu, Din, and the gang. And, he said emotions aren't for sharing. And then, his lame bullshit apology. And it's like, he should have just gone. I mean, in my opinion, what can the guy do to get himself absolutely canned? He called the fans names, got into fights on Twitter with them, went out of his way to attack the biggest YouTuber, Star Wars YouTuber out there, and the most popular Star Wars YouTuber, who's just loves Star Wars and wants it to be great. Why? And mine is too, Ian. I just sit there and go, what else have we not been told? Why are they keeping it so secret? Disney's stocks are back up. They're like trading at what, 119? I think today. They've gone up with the stock market. Lilo and Stitch was a great movie. And they look like they're doing quite well. So, you know, and then here's something else I want to add. Star Wars Theory talked about this, and if anybody can find the link in Instagram, put it in in one of the message boxes on this video, not in the chat, but as a comment. And the reason why, or send it to me send it to me on either on Facebook Messenger or an email. Netflix, this is the rumor Theory came up with. Netflix apparently wants, quote, buy Star Wars. So I went and did a search. The only articles I could find pertaining, and I asked Grok, and Grok said there's nothing there. Okay, so I went to Google, I went through, and I found a 4-year-old article that said Netflix wants its own Star Wars. And I think what the person who made up the story, because it's a lie, did is they took that story and said Netflix wants to buy Star Wars. Now, Netflix, I think, is talking to Zack Snyder about making Rebel Moon into a franchise. I know that they're doing it. I just wish that they wouldn't have the sequels on it at all. I know it's just a promotion, but I would have probably cautioned them, don't use the sequels, right? Just, don't. But that's just me. But what does this even mean? First off, Theory didn't tell us what account on Instagram posted that. He picked up his computer, showed it, and then turned it around before you could actually read the screen and look to see the account. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Well, his timeline isn't going to be there. If they do it right, they'll bring the twins in. Now, Mara Jade, apparently they are talking about bringing her in. And if they bring her in, they should bring the twins in. And if they want a Ben Skywalker, fine, okay? To me, Ben Solo didn't work. I thought, I didn't really understand what they were doing when, you saw the first trailers for The Force Awakens, and I felt pretty strongly that Rey was Han and Leia's daughter. She was off doing something, and you looked at the wreckage around her, and you thought maybe there's something in that wreckage that she needs to find, and then we get Rey Nobody. And it's like, so, what haven't we been told? Well, Peter, what I think they did was they just did a soft reboot of A New Hope. And that did not come from Kennedy, who I don't think has ever seen A New Hope. And it didn't come from, Abrams and the has-been Larry Kasdan. It came from Alan Horn when he was the movie guy, and Iger. Iger said, I don't want to get into the lore. What they wanted was a paint by numbers movie. And who else, who else could make a paint by numbers movie than J.J. Abrams? You know, and Larry Kasdan, you know, getting a hard on for killing off Han Solo. I mean, how? The question is, you're looking at Kasdan saying he's your favorite character, but you wanted to kill him off. What the fuck? Okay, and you know how you keep actors around? Money, money, lots and lots of money. All right. I mean, you had dangled another $20 million to Harrison Ford's contract, you'd have been in all three of them. Right? And I'm like, okay, you know, that's what you do. But, you know, when I think about J.J. Abrams, I think lazy, soft, reboot. Rian Johnson, mean-spirited, evil bully shit. And J.J. Abrams, the last human being in the world you want to have try to fix what's broken in a movie. Now, I say you could have fixed The Last Jedi. You could have. But J.J. Abrams is not capable of doing that. You could have fixed The Force Awakens. But Rian Johnson didn't want to. He wanted to fuck with people. That's the one thing he did not address. You know, he says he finds, you know, love the fans and they're so passionate. It's like, little fucker, you called us man babies. I got called a man baby by him. I'm like, I'm not a man. First off, you little fuck. Second of all, what you did to the potential of this movie out of selfishness, narcissistic, mean-spirited bullshit should be criminal. You should be in prison. You know, I mean, it's J.J. Abrams is a phony. He's a phony. You know, he's just a fucking phony. And you know, well, it did kind of work for him, but it didn't because his trilogy never got off the ground. As he said, it never got beyond concept. There were never any, there weren't any scripts, any, you know, script, you know, things, treatments, or anything. And, well, you know, Peter, you know the story, right? Because I did my upload, and you guys got to watch the upload. It plays for me so I can get my algorithm back. This is what happened. He said to Mark Fernandez, the former owner of Collider, that he went in to pitch a trilogy to Kennedy. And she said, why don't you do episode 8 instead? There was no plan. It was not well thought out. It was an absolute destructive mess to everything that came before it, the sequels. I don't even want to get into the gross misconduct of Solo. Okay, no. You know, so here we are. I mean, we sit here and we think, what else aren't we being told? We don't have a date for the Queen to leave. Who else is left? Who else has left Lucasfilm we haven't been told? How was the company restructured? Because I think from 2023, when the Nazgul were running around and Kennedy was kept off the lot, kept off the campus of Lucasfilm, how is it restructured? What is going on? Now, if Rian Johnson feels safe enough to say, I wanted to pitch my sequel trilogy before I got episode 8, she gave me episode 8 instead, and the sequel trilogy never really had any legs. Again, what else haven't we been told? What else is going on here? What else? That's the thing, okay? And I feel like every time we get a little more info, we're either, going back 2 feet or going forward 2 feet. All right, and this is going forward 2 feet. I think Rian Johnson met George years ago, and George probably was like, with him. And that's why Johnson always said on the lead up to The Last Jedi, be careful about meeting your heroes because they'll disappoint you. And I'm pretty sure that if he was like, Mr. Lucas, George is like, go away. And that's what I think that was about. I mean, Luke Skywalker is George's namesake, right? So, there you go. And I want to know how much of these movies were driven by internet sentiment, by the Ray blows. Garen goddamn it. All that shit with Kyle Ron, the shirtless Swolo shit, the kiss at the end when he dies, and the rise of Palpatine, that was driven by Ray blow. That was driven by idiots on the social media idiots going, they just love Raylo. We have to have Raylo. And of course, Kennedy was a Raylo, right? I mean, and again, she doesn't give a shit about what Raylo did to the OG, right? She didn't give a shit. And she also didn't really think about, mind fucking, mind rape, and all the rest of that stuff. And the disturbing shit that came out of this, the perverted porn, these toxic females put out there. The fact that Adam Driver had to get security for his family because they were threatening them. And Daisy? I mean, it's like you've got a bunch of really strange people. It's like Antifa, Well, here's the deal. Rian was attacking George for the sequel trilogy, milking Star Wars for profit. That's what that was about. It had nothing to do with Luke Skywalker. That was a middle finger to George, the whole sea cow thing. That's all it was. Okay, that's what that was. Rian Johnson believes he's an auteur director, just like Leslie Headland believes she's Noel Coward and the female version of William Shakespeare. No. Yeah, both of them though, Ian. But milking the cow is a direct insult to how much money George was making. And, it doesn't matter how, generous George has been in his life. The fact that when he sold Lucasfilm, all of the longtime employees got $1 million bonuses, which is like, the fact that he used a lot of the money that he earned from selling Lucasfilm for his museum. And the fact that he fired the black woman he had hired to be the museum director because she went off on this DEI fucking woke mission and he'd had enough. It's his museum, right? And that actually, as filthy and disgusting as Los Angeles is, I would love to actually go see that museum of narrative film. I think that would be a trip. But, everything that Disney allowed to happen. All right. And hey, Cam, how you doing? It falls on them. As, Iger figured it out that Kennedy was a bad investment when she fired who was the director of Rogue One, and they had to replace him to finish editing in post-production. And it just got worse and worse and worse. Gareth Edwards, okay. Thanks, Ian. She fired him. Now, suddenly he gets jobs working for her husband. Hollywood is weird. Hollywood is just fucking weird. I think the only time I've ever seen somebody, well, Johnny Depp too, but there's a rumor that he's coming back as Captain Jack. But the only time I've ever seen somebody fuck up and get canceled and not come back to the same thing is Shia LaBeouf with Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford basically called him a fucking idiot, if you remember. Shia's got a lot of issues. I wouldn't doubt that Shia is probably on spectrum, right? It wouldn't surprise me at all. You'd be very surprised how many people really are. And, I don't, whatever. But, so you would think that Iger would go, I think I'm probably going to need to take her into, slow her down. But instead, he did what Iger does, gives her free reign. And it's like, no. So anyway, so here's where we're at. Johnson admits he never had a trilogy. So it's like, we've been misled for 7 years. 7 fucking years people believed he had a trilogy. Right? We don't have any date of departure for the Queen of Chaos. We don't know who's taking over. We do know Jon Favreau is working up. He's producing Oswald the Bunny for Disney. We don't really know what's going on. What haven't we been told? We haven't been given any numbers of people who have left. But we know people left. And we sit here going, what's... But anyway, I gotta go. I'm gonna go. I gotta look in on Kay. She cut her eye above her right eye, little bump there. So I gotta put some Neosporin on it. And she's not doing well right now. She may have Cushing's disease, but she's 25 years old. I give her a bunch of extra food, and I'm not seeing her gaining any weight. So pray for my horse. I want her to feel better again. I want her to be the fat and sassy shithead she always has been. Well, Peter, she succeeded with Anbor, so there you go. All right, anyway, I gotta rock, and you guys have a good day. Kojak says, hi. There's Kojak. So there you go. And I gotta rock, and I'll see you guys later. Oh, and one more thing. Harrison Ford got an Emmy nomination for Shrinking. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's a good show. And it's the only place I've seen diversity work. Steph, sending out, see you around the galaxy.